Finally, let's talk about the XSL choose command. As the name implies, one nice thing about the XSL commands, I think you'll agree, is that they're pretty nicely named. They're named in a way that kind of helps you to understand what they do. Value of gets the value of something. If says if something, then do this code. For each does the code for each node that it's found. And XSL choose is used to choose among alternatives. So a few things to note about the choose command, and here it is down here. So here's a choose command from line 89 down to 97, and I'll draw your attention to this little line right here that shows you the extent of every tag. It shows you the scope of the tag. That's a very nice little thing. So that choose command has a bunch of whens. So the XSL choose is really a wrapper. The XSL choose is the container, and it contains a bunch of XSL whens. Each of those XSL whens has a test attribute, and the test attribute in the when works exactly like the test attribute in the if. So I look at this XPath, and if the XPath contains, if the XPath is true, if the XPath returns a node, then that test is true. If the XPath does not return a node, then the XPath is false, and whatever's inside the when will not execute. Okay, so we have here 1, 2, 3, 4 whens, each one of them showing a different condition. Dialog / language mode equals none, language mode equals dub, language mode equals subtitled, and language mode equals silent. So we have something called the language mode attribute. Notice the at there. And that language mode attribute has these 4 values. And depending on the value, we're going to write a different text string into the HTML file, not translated, dubbed into other languages, subtitled, silent movie, or silent movie. Okay, so the choose itself is just a container to contain all the whens. Each when has a test. That test is either true or false. If it's true, the thing inside the when will be done, and then we'll go away. We won't do anything more. So if we have another one that's true down here, only the first one that's true will be executed, because it's certainly possible to have 2 things that are true. Okay, the next thing to notice is that then this functions like a bunch of ifs all stacked together. In fact, it's a very convenient way to stack together a bunch of ifs. It's really fairly well equivalent to a stacked set of ifs. Except there's this one last one, which is the otherwise. That is what will happen if none of the ones above are true. So if none of these conditions are true, the language mode is not none, dubbed, subtitle is silent, then the otherwise will happen. And in this case, that's an error, because we didn't expect any of those. We didn't expect the language mode to be anything but those, and so we're going to output an error in that case. Okay, the last thing to look at is, why does this XPath look so strange? It's a relative XPath. Relative to what? Relative to the current node, as always. The current node here is set in 83. In line 83, we have XSL for each. Select whack whack movie again. And so the movie has a dialog subnode, and we can look in here, and we can see that here's a movie, and here's the plot summary, here's the description, and here's the dialogue. And notice it has a language mode. So language mode subtitled. Okay, so reviewing, choose allows us to choose among alternatives. In this case, the alternatives are different language mode attributes, and here are 4 alternatives. If it's none of those alternatives, that's an error, and we want to say so. The XPath here is set to dialogue, and so we're going to look at the dialogue of the current movie. So we're going to do this for each movie. One last thing to notice is that the entire for each statement here, all of this stuff, is wrapped inside of a table. We have a table, and then it has a header row, and then for each movie, we produce a different row. Can you see that? For each movie, we're going to produce a row. The first cell of that row has the title of the movie, and the second row of that, the second column, the first column of the row has the title of the movie, and the second column of the row chooses among the various alternatives in order to put out what kind of translation is involved in that movie. Now, if we look at the output, we'll see that that's exactly what happens. Here's my XSL choose. Here's my table. And the table has a header row. This is the header row right here. It says movie and translation. And then under it, one row for each movie. So for each movie produces a row. First cell of the row is the title of the movie. Second cell of the row has a string in it depending on the attribute, depending on the language mode attribute. All right, so that's a little bit complicated. There's a lot going on with the choose, but once you get used to it, It's not so hard to use. And the way you think about it is I use a choose if I need to choose among various alternatives, and for a particular, in this case, movie, the movie could be any one of those alternatives. The choose, it starts with a container that just contains a choose. It has a bunch of whens. Each one has a test. The test is either true or false. If the test is true, what's inside will run. If the test is false, what's inside won't run. As soon as it hits a true one, it stops evaluating the rest of them. So only the first true one runs. And if none of the true ones run, it will hit the otherwise statement and it'll do what's in the otherwise statement.